from the father of a subject who was acting erratically. The father initially requested a fire and medic response. Upon arrival, firefighters contacted the subject verbally. The subject was hostile to the responding units, so they removed themselves from the subject and notified dispatch. Also in the apartment, along with the father and the subject, a 25-year-old male, were 2 children. Chico police officers were then dispatched and responded to the scene. Upon arrival, the subject was seen pacing in a small living room area and was seen holding 2 knives. Officers attempted to communicate with the subject to calm him down without success. In their attempt to defuse the situation, officers moved back away from the subject, but remained in the area due to an overall concern for the children and father still trapped in the apartment. As the officers were attempting to defuse the situation, the subject slammed the front door closed so that the officers could not see what was occurring inside the apartment. The officers then received information that the subject was attempting to stab the father and break down the locked bedroom door the father was hiding behind. Due to the now imminent threat to the father and to the 2 children inside the apartment that was posed by the armed subject, officers gained entry through the front door apartment in order to protect them. As they made entry, the subject was now adjacent to the front door, in very close proximity to the officers. One of the officers deployed his electronic control device, commonly known as a taser, but that taser only had minimal effect on the subject. Before a second taser deployment could occur, the subject jumped to his feet and started to slash at the officers, who again were in very close proximity to the subject. 2 officers on scene discharged their handguns, striking the subject. The subject then fell to the ground. Fire and medical personnel who had originally responded were still staged in the area. They were called up and immediate life-saving efforts were administered on scene. The subject was subsequently transported to Enloe Hospital, where he eventually succumbed to his injuries. The Chico Police Department has not deployed body cameras, so no officer or other video evidence exists at this time. Names of the subject and the involved officers will be released at a later date. The Butte County officer-involved critical incident response team has been activated to conduct the investigation. And I want to be clear about something tonight. This is a tragic event. It's tragic for the family, the officers that were involved, for everyone. And that is regardless of the outcome of this investigation. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the District Attorney, Mike Ramsey.
All right, good morning. As the Chief has indicated, this is the very beginning of this investigation, and I want to emphasize also that this is not a Chico Police Department investigation. This is an investigation by the Butte County officer involved critical incident shooting protocol team. That is a team that consists of seasoned investigators from all of the various law enforcement agencies in Butte County. As we speak, those officers are out. They have been canvassing the neighborhood. They've been talking to people that are potential witnesses. The Department of Justice is taking care of the crime scene right now and are still investigating a number of the pieces of evidence that will be going on probably for the rest of this night and well into tomorrow. Just as a notation that the one indication that the chief had indicated is noted that the officers received information that the subject was attempting to stab the father. That information was from the father himself calling into 911 at the dispatch. I have listened to that tape myself as we are gathering the various 911 tapes, dispatch tapes, talking to all of the involved personnel that are involved. We'll take some just real short questions because I don't want to make it clear again. Lots of stuff, lots of moving pieces, and I don't want to mislead anyone with information that we don't have or aren't sure of at this point.
Was anyone injured outside of the victim or the
So
subject was shot?
the involved officers, all the officers on the scene, no one was injured except for the subject that was armed.
When you say officers received more information or information about a possible stabbing threat to the father, was that a second 911 call or was that part of
There were several 911 calls made by the father.
So remember the first one that was made, the information was that could be handled by essentially fire personnel and medics, and that began to escalate after that first contact by the fire department and medical personnel.
Did you say that 2 officers discharged their weapons?
That is correct, yes.
And they're both Chico police officers?
Yes.
So at this point, you can't say or don't want to say yet how many times the victim was struck?
Can't really say at this point until there is an autopsy. The victim was struck multiple times.
Can you describe just briefly again what happened in between from the time that he was tasered to the time that he was shot?
I mean, literally, it happened within seconds. A taser was deployed, and from the sound of it, the taser was only partially effective. It was not fully engaged, what we would call a full engagement, where the person was completely incapacitated. That obviously was not happening because at some point during that cycle, he was able to rise to his feet and start to slash at the officers.
And when we say cycle, that's a taser talk for the number of seconds that the taser runs until it stops with its voltage.
So typically that is a 5-second cycle if it performs appropriately.
And the subject who died is a 25-year-old male?
Yes, that is correct.
Did you, or maybe it's too soon to know, but is he familiar with law enforcement? Do you have a history with him?
We have some history. We're not ready to release that tonight, but yes, we have some history.
When you said mental issues, can you be at all more specific?
That's going to be continued to be explored. There had been a mental issue. Family had indicated that there had been perhaps some head injuries in the past to the subject. That's why the chief has indicated that what we're looking at is a tragedy. No indication at this point, at least, but we won't know until the autopsy is done that the subject was intoxicated or on drugs or anything such as this. It may be strictly a problem, mental illness issue according to the family.
But there was clearly some very bizarre behavior that was occurring during that evening, from what we can tell.
Involving the knife and the threats, is that
Yes.
what you're referring to?
Yes.
How did officers gain entry after the door was shut?
Okay. And what we're gonna do now is getting really into kind of the weeds, and we want to kind of hold on that. The officers gained entry by virtue of the fact that they broke down the door because the father was calling from inside, basically asking for help, that he was going to be stabbed by his son. He was trapped in the back bedroom.
Was the father removed from the premises before any incidents occurred?
No, he could not be.
So they were locked in bedrooms, like we said. The 2 children, and then the father.
What is the race of the subject and the officers involved?
Race of the subject is African American, as I think you saw the family outside.
I wasn't at the scene, I'm sorry.
Okay.
And the officers.
You would know better.
Uh,
If it's relevant. I'm not sure it's particularly relevant at this point. The officers, from what I've seen, and the officers are still being interviewed, appear to be white, but I can't speak specifically to their racial makeup.
And they'll be put on, I'm assuming it's in protocol, they'll be put on paid administrative.
Which is standard for this type of incident, yes.
And tell us again who is going to be investigating this?
Me.
Okay.
Is it, what's the policy in a situation like this? Is it to deploy the taser like they did and then to use force if necessary, to use weapons? Is
The
that-
policy depends on the circumstances. Remember, this was a very quickly dynamic type of situation. If we have the ability just to back off and leave that individual alone, if he was the only person in there, we have done that many, many times in these situations. What made it more complicated and made it exigent, meaning there was an emergency for our officers to make entry into that apartment, was the fact that the father was a potential victim of a son who was attempting to stab him, and then we had 2 children also in that same apartment that were at risk. Everyone in that apartment, those 3 individuals I just mentioned, were at risk by this individual. We did not have the luxury of just waiting this person out. It really was necessary, what we call an exigent circumstance, for those officers to make entry and to stop that threat, which was being essentially present for the father and for the 2 children.
And again, this is all preliminary, folks.
How many years on the force for each officer who's been put on?
So we're not going to release any specific information about the officers yet. We will release everything in the next couple of days to include information about the subject that was shot.
And the children who were in the home and the residence, it was a home, it was a house?
In an apartment.
They were, whose children were they?
They were the grandchildren of the father of the deceased subject. The deceased subject was the uncle of the children.
When you say children, can you be specific about their ages?
I believe around 11 and 14.
All right, so we will have further information as the investigation continues, but at this point, we're going to go ahead and end the press conference. But thank you very much for coming. We'll see you again.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right.
And you've been watching live a press conference from Chico Police Department with Police Chief Michael O'Brien and Butte County District Attorney handling this case.